Welcome back to Magic Hour Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Taylor Paige.
And this is Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
What a deep topic we have for you guys today. I was telling Claire before we hit record, like a little bit of my witch wound was flaring around talking about this topic, which is really interesting because I haven't had that feeling or emotion in a long time. But I think that this will factor in a little bit later, that it's showing me in real time how to face my fears so that I can help teach other people, because I'm sure that this topic will activate a lot of different shadowy stuff for a lot of us in different ways. So it's already happening to me.
I feel like that's so exciting. And it's like we've been talking about a lot lately. It's like, what a great opportunity to look at another shadow, a layer that maybe you didn't even realize was still there, and how cool that it's coming up to be explored and talked about and, hopefully help other people face this as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that our healing journey never ends. There's always deeper layers, but what's cool is we meet them as new versions of self. So, where in the past I might have been like shaking and editing what I was going to say and trying to people please everybody, I'm actually just here breathing into the discomfort and listening to it and seeing what lies it has for me so that I can sink into what the message is underneath it. And that's what's so beautiful about like a grief healing journey, a witch wound healing journey, as we talk about today, a spirit wound healing journey, is that the wound still comes up, but the version of us that meets it is ever changing and growing and evolving. And even if there's just a nanosecond of peace in between, or a nanosecond of your higher self saying, is this really true? Or a nanosecond of your higher self saying, it's all going to be okay, that's progress.
Yeah, it's like that spiral, I feel like sometimes we think that, oh, I'm back to the same lesson, but it's like, no, it's this spiral motion of we meet these things in a different version of ourselves that's even more ready to explore or face it in a way that maybe 5 years ago we just couldn't have even looked at.
Yeah, I really feel like it's season 3 of Magic Hour that I'm talking about this and ready to talk about this and have been prepared for this. Like, this topic that we're talking about today feels like a really important part of not just this season, but like my life's work. And I'm sure it will continue to develop. But before we go into the topic, I just want to talk a little bit about an experience that I had with my aunt last weekend. So, we went to this spiritualist church in Santa Barbara, which is the only spiritualist church I know of in Southern California. I don't think there's one in LA, which is sad. Someone should start one. And it's called the Church of the Comforter. And so basically, you can get there early and they have healing. There's like 2 healers, chairs in front of them. You can just sit in front of them. They ask to put their hands on your shoulders and then they just like send you healing energy. So that's for 30 minutes. Everybody's just kind of like sitting in the power and feeling healing energy. And you can go get a healing. And then the service starts at 11. So I had this really interesting experience. I was like, of course I'm going to go get a healing. And I sat with like this really sweet lady and I just kind of opened myself up to the love of spirit. And I swear every time I've ever gotten a healing at a spiritualist church, because I've gotten one at AFC as well, Arthur Finley College, the people have the most like gentle energy. It's like so beautiful. And I was opening up to spirit and I got this subtle feeling of my heart and like the grief I carry in my heart and kind of like emotional pain I've been carrying, and how that emotional pain, they were almost showing me these like cords of connection to tension being held in other parts of my body. Like my emotional pain was causing this like tension in my lower abdomen and other areas where the body on like a subconscious level or a nervous system level feels like tight and not safe when you're living in all of this emotional pain. Like it doesn't understand the difference when pain is stored in your body. And so I basically got this like flash of understanding that when these healers work on us, one of the first places the energy goes is to stored and stuck emotions in the heart that's keeping our body in a place of not feeling safe and therefore creating stress and tension and inflammation. And so, like, my heart opened and I was like, sometimes you don't think of healing that way. You're just like thinking that the energy is going to go right to the place where you're having pain and then it will like heal it. But it's actually a domino effect of other energies in the body. And so I like felt, and this happened to me at Arthur Findlay College too, where like your heart just cracks wide open, which is also really important to just feel the feeling so that your heart can be more open to receive messages and information and less clouded with your own like somatically stored pain. And so I went back with my aunt to our little pew and I looked up at the stained glass window next to me on my left. And like the angel in the stained glass just looked exactly like my mom. And my mom's in spirit for those that don't know. And so I told my aunt, like, look, doesn't that angel look like my mom? And at the same time, my aunt and I just like started bawling. And it's so interesting because my mom passed like 4.5 years ago, and we just got hit with a wave of grief as if it was yesterday. And sometimes that's just grief for you. So then the service started. We're supposed to sing this like beautiful song about like spirit watching over us and all these things. I was like, I can't do that right now. I was like crying through it. And I feel like I don't know if I like scared the guy that was giving the speech today, but he was like very delicate with us. Like afterwards, he's like, "Hello, ladies." Like it was really sweet. But it was just so interesting and healing, and just a reminder that like sometimes that is what healing looks like, is just feeling the deeper grief and making space for the discomfort. Sometimes we can think of those things as taking a step back or being counterproductive, but really it's just processing things so that other parts of your body get the memo that that's not currently what we are experiencing.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes so much sense that you had that healing work done, and that must have really like released some stuff, released some energy. And a lot of times we have these judgments about big feeling releases like that, because we don't want to be sad, or we might think like, oh, it's been 4.5 years. Why am I still sad or whatever? But on a scientific level, there are stress hormones in our tears. So, like when we cry, we are moving that energy through us. And it's literally a release of those feelings that we're storing inside. So, I think it's such a beautiful thing when we can have those moments of grief, of experiencing that love that you feel for her and the way that you ache and miss her, and that you guys got to share in that together. Like, I'm sure that was such a full body energetic release. And we need that. I mean, we need to be able to move that energy sometimes, because otherwise it's just all stuck inside of us and we're carrying it with us everywhere we go.
Yeah, so true. So I thought that was a really beautiful experience. And also, just as a medium, I have, after watching the teachers at AFC tap into the same spirit person as like the person giving the reading, they were tapping into the same person. I try to do that while other mediums demonstrate as well, like not in an obnoxious way, but just as a like practicing with myself to myself type of way. And it was kind of cool because I don't know if you'd be called a pastor. I'm not sure what the title is for people in spiritualist churches, but he was giving his demonstration and there was a woman coming through and he was like talking about all of these things about her. And the lady was like, I don't know. I'm not sure who this is, like blah, blah, blah. And I was tuning into her too. And I just heard she knows me from college. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so the lady was like, "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. Like I can take the message, but I don't understand who this is and I don't know where I know her from." So he tuned back in and he was like, "She's saying she knows you from college." And I was like, "Oh, I just got that." So it was kind of fun to do that, because when you're at AFC or you see your teachers doing it, it seems like such a magic trick, like seeing them all tapped into the same information at once. And so it's really cool to push ourselves and see what we can do too.
What incredible validation, too. I mean, that is just so incredible. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, you are tapping into that energy. Wow, that's so, so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool because she was kept talking about like activism and eco consciousness and all of these things. And this lady was probably in her 70s, and she's like, I run like a nonprofit to fight racism, but I don't know about the eco stuff. And then when he said she's from college, she's like, oh, yeah, in college, I was huge into that and I volunteered for this and that. So it was like someone she knew from that.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so that was a really cool experience and just a beautiful spot. And people who go to spiritualist churches, like on the most part, when I've been, are just like the sweetest, kindest people. And they just want to feel peace and to know their loved ones are okay. And some of them are developing mediums. And it's just like the best vibe. I really do. I love the people that I see there.
Yeah, it sounds like such a great community and very similar to our hummingbird community, people who are living really intentionally and trying to put good energy into the world and good energy into themselves.
I agree. And there's one thing I actually took a screenshot of from the service that I wanted to share. So for the church, there's this page in the program called the Declaration of Principles. And it's basically like 9 things that you read out loud together, which is fine. But I'm like, what am I agreeing to? I don't like reading out loud at the same time that I'm like conceptualizing of what the idea is. Like, no, don't put words in my mouth. But I actually read all of them and I was like, yeah, okay, I can say this out loud. But one of the declarations of principles really hit me like a ton of bricks. It was, we affirm the moral responsibility of individuals and that we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws. I was like, that's a deep one.
Wow. Mic drop.
That's the kind of church I would like to be going to.
Yes. What a powerful, powerful statement.
I know. I kind of want to read it again.
Please do. Yeah, I was going to ask you to read it again. Please do.
Okay. The first time we have to pick our jaws up off the floor. Now we can really listen. Okay. We affirm the moral responsibility of individuals and that we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws.
Wow.
I know.
I love that. It's so true, too. I mean, it really is so true. The way that we live in harmony with nature is in direct relation, I think, to the level of happiness that we experience. And also, the level of happiness we choose to experience is on us to such a large degree.
And are we co creating with love or fear? It doesn't mean we're in charge of every single experience we have. Like sometimes things can happen to us, but then in the aftermath, are we moving through it from a place of love or fear? And I think that that's what that principle is talking about in regards to spiritual law. It's like remembering that we're loved, remembering our power, being kind, like all of those things really do affect our happiness or unhappiness.
Yeah, I've been talking about this with friends lately. It's like the lens through which you see the world, the lens through which you filter everything that happens to you. So that doesn't mean that bad things maybe won't happen, but if your lens is everyone's out to get me, you are going to see that and feel that and find evidence of that. And if your lens is I'm so loved and so supported, you are going to see that and feel that and then co-create with that. And that one shift of how you're receiving everything really makes such a difference. And, we can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control that lens that we see things and receive things. Like that is in our power and it makes such a difference.
So true. Our beliefs are so important because they truly create our whole experience of our time here on earth. And it's okay to not all believe the same things. I really love what they say on the telepathy tapes. Kai Dickens says, like, to be a true skeptic, you have to have an open mind, or else you're not really a true skeptic. You're just trying to hold on to one narrative and not really looking at the facts of anything else. And so this topic today of healing the spirit wound, let's get into it. You guys all know healing the witch wound is something I'm so passionate about. So, in 2024, I think, I did my Healing the Witch Wound workshop. We have an episode on Healing the Witch Wound, episode 103 of Magic Hour. And I was sitting in the power. Sitting in the presence of spirit is another way to say it. And it's like the spiritualist form of meditation. And spirit came to me and said, what they did to the witch, they did to us. And I got this image of like scary movies and haunted houses and ghosts with sheets going boo. Like we have these negative primed associations with spirit and fear of spirit and fear of spiritual connection that has happened through programming and indoctrination and misinformation and misinterpretation. So I set out, innocent little me, to be like, okay, I'm going to create a workshop on healing the fear and misinformation around spirit. And I'm going to call it Healing the Spirit Wound. And I'm also going to incorporate mediumship development and opening up to mediumship in the workshop, since I don't have anything tied to that yet. And then as you enter a pact with spirit and you like start to create sacred space, you realize, wow, this is so much bigger than what I realized it was going to be sometimes. And I realized fear of spirit is not the spirit wound itself, it's a symptom of the spirit wound. And so I just want to preface before I get into all of this, there's a few things I want to say. One is that true skeptics have an open mind piece. Two is that if you, while I talk about these topics, feel any resistance or discomfort or like a trigger comes up, I just invite you, like, you don't have to take what I'm saying as absolute truth. I don't claim to know every single thing about the universe. I'm sharing my truth, my experience, evidence as I see it, and what I feel called to share and what I'm being told to share. But run everything through your own barometer in the heart and just know if it's hysterical, it's historical in some way. And if this topic triggers you, it shows that there is something to it, or else you would be kind of neutral and just like interested, maybe lightly interested, and then say, okay. But if it's causing a visceral emotional reaction, it shows that it might be triggering something in you that feels unsafe to relate a different way. And that's worth looking at. That's a disclaimer I want to say. I also want to say another disclaimer in that I have a lot of respect for Indigenous practices and Indigenous beliefs. And I think a lot of Indigenous practices got a lot right. So when I talk about like the spirit wound and wounded consciousness through millennia and things like that, I really think we lost our way somewhere in the middle. So, in no way am I trying to invalidate Indigenous wisdom, or like I'm not lumping everything in together. I'm not an expert in all world religions and beliefs. I'm sharing my experience of the collective consciousness around these themes into the age and day that I'm born into and the predominant way of thinking. So, those are my disclaimers. Basically, when I realized that the fear of spirit is just a symptom of the spirit wound, it hit me like a ton of bricks because my mind started going through and down these rabbit holes of like detangling everything and what this really means. And in this workshop and in this episode, I really do want to focus on fear of spirit because I think it's a really big piece of the puzzle. But basically, the message that came through to me is that the spirit wound is so much more than the fear of spirit. And the spirit wound was the introduction into the consciousness of humankind that we are spiritually inferior beings, that we are powerless, that we are spiritual victims to the whims of a higher power, when in reality, we are powerful creators ourselves, experiencing the duality of the human experience. And I think that this really changes everything, because this isn't to say that I don't believe in a more intelligent force or a force of higher love or a force of higher miracles. But I do believe that as humans in physical bodies in a physical world, we're the creators. And spirit and God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, which I believe in all of that too. This is not to say it doesn't exist. It's to say we have been disempowered. We have seen ourselves and believed ourselves to be spiritual victims or inferior. And it's affected every part of humanity's experience on Earth. Being physical beings in a physical plane, when we introduced into our psyche that we were just at the whims of what an all powerful creator wanted for us, it took the toolbox out of our hands to be the stewards of the land for each other, for the animals. And we can see how that has allowed for all of this shadow and dysfunction and evil to be done on earth. And I think it's trickled. So the spirit wound, in my opinion, is really a 4-part wound. The first part is the mental part. It is the part in our mind that is fearful, indoctrinated, superstitious, disconnected from our own spiritual gifts, afraid of spirit. The second part of the spirit wound is the spirit part. It's basically a denial of us, of our nature truly being spirit. Like we are spirit. And when we have a spirit wound, we forget that. And we go into life in this passive mode of kind of waiting and receiving and perceiving whatever we attract as signs of our worthiness or devotion or unworthiness, instead of realizing it's always been us. We're the ones that will save us. We're the ones that have a higher self and a soul. And we're the ones that need to remember that. So there's a mind part, a spirit part. There's an inner child part to the spirit wound. What has been inherited? How does your family talk about these topics? Where have you projected your relationship of your parents onto the divine? I think sometimes we do that where we're like waiting for permission or thinking we're judged or thinking we're not good enough. Like, and anytime that there's big triggers around things, there's usually inner child involvement. So the inner child is like a huge part of healing the spirit wound. And then there's a collective wound. And that is this poison in the collective consciousness. We see it everywhere in every single movie about anything other, anything esoteric, anything spooky. It's always humans as the least powerful form of energy in the movie, whether it's aliens or ghosts or monsters. It's like the humans better, back down. Or, of course, those aliens are more intelligent than us. Of course, everything is more superior than us. Like, and I'm not even saying this from a cocky place of like humans are the highest authority. I'm saying we can't forget that we are also powerful. We also have so much say. Like we are creators. We are not beholden to a form of creation that's trying to punish us or reward us. Everything is mirroring to us how much we remember our own innate force of creation.
Yes, Taylor, so much amazing stuff in there. I feel this so deeply. And, I think for me, it was a reason that it took me so long to find my spirituality. I think because the messaging, I didn't grow up really with much of an influence from my parents around it, but so much of the messaging felt wrong to me and felt like this, punishing, jealous, petty story that I just didn't resonate with. And it really wasn't until I found like witchiness and this world that was so empowered around spirituality and so about our connection to ourselves and the energy of the world that I started to realize that I wanted to be a part of this in any way. It makes me think of control in a lot of ways too. Like, it's easy to control people who feel disempowered. And I think that has been a tool used against us for a long time. And it's so layered. I mean, you said so much amazing stuff. So I'm really excited to continue to dive into it because I feel it so deeply. And it's time to recognize our power and our agency and to step into it, not just leaning back, like we are powerful and we need to step into it.
Yes. And it is so layered, which makes it really nuanced to talk about. And I think as soon as we got to a place where like gender affected ability to be in places of spiritual leadership, as soon as we got to places where God was spoken about as fear instead of love, like we can see these early seeds of the spirit wound and how through millennia it's affected everything about how we see ourselves and our roles as creators on earth. It's like huge. And so another layer, oh gosh, it's so nuanced. I'm like, how do I even talk about this?
We'll do many episodes.
I know, right? And also just come to the workshop, okay? So humans love to project what we understand onto what we don't understand. So, like the idea of God or the divine, like we anthropomorphize everything. And I think that the spirit wound doesn't just stem from religion and indoctrination and media, even though that's a big part of it. I think it also stems from just us not understanding mental illness, psychology, shadow work, and anthropomorphizing the shadows into demons and mental illness into demons. And we can't explain these negative forces, and for some of it, it's a mental illness that we can't understand. For some of it, It's that we don't want to process the shame of negative things we've done. And so we attribute it to some sort of possession or XYZ thing. And it goes so deep. Like, even when we say, bless you, that comes from the idea that when our mouth is open and your eyes are closed, a demon can fly into your body. And so that's why you say, bless you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the way that this is so deep is why my witch wound has been prickling about talking about it, because it challenges like everything, but also it unravels that love is the truth. And I truly believe that spirit and God in the universe are love, and everything else is human nature being projected onto those things as a outdated protector. And I think that healing the spirit wound is like truly deep ancestral work. It's reclamation work. It's so, so deep in so many layers. And so I think that this stems from a place where science and technology and psychology and all of these fields have progressed. And yet, for some reason, we still have this like medieval consciousness when it comes to spirituality, and we're all scared and superstitious and trembling. Or that's one side of the spirit wound. The other polarity of the spirit wound is being cynical and closed and so rooted in materialism that you just like think you dismiss it and you're unkind to people. You judge people for their heightened sensitivity to the unseen world. So I think that this wound, there's a whole spectrum of, but it really affects everybody on earth, because it's like you either didn't resonate with the stories of superstition and fear, so you went fully the other way to protect yourself, or you did resonate with them and you're in that consciousness of fear, or you're doing the reclamation work in your own way. You don't have to use my language of healing the spirit wound, and you're like finding your middle ground. But no matter what, there is a way that these narratives have affected us and our connection to spirit and the world around us and all of these things. So we're in this place now where it's like, if all of these industries can evolve, if science is starting to explain spiritual phenomenon that people have been saying for years, like energy healing and all of these things, and even spirit mediums are having their brains tested, it's like, are we not ready to take our power back and evolve and relate to this topic more powerfully as well? Can we get out of the spectrum of spiritual victim consciousness up to nihilism and just feel safe enough to reconnect with our heart and our higher self and our power? And that to me feels like where human consciousness needs to take responsibility as creators of this world. It doesn't matter, like, spirit shows me that we're all like different colored paintbrushes and different colored paints and different shapes and sizes, and it makes its art through all of us. It doesn't even matter what religion or spiritual system you follow, but how much more powerful is it if you connect to those as an empowered, informed, grounded version of self, and then you choose that? Isn't that a more sacred covenant with your God, universe, higher power than feeling superstitious, scared, or giving your power away and then being there?
Absolutely. Yes. It made me think of stuff we've talked about with the unknown, right? Because I feel like, spirit, God, why we're here, how we got here is this like huge unknown. And I think a lot of our relationship to it comes out of the fear of the unknown. Like, I have family members who are definitely on that like nihilism spectrum where they're like, when you die, it's lights out. There's no God. Astrology is trash. I'm like, I can see that they are clinging to that just the same way that you could say someone who's like, there's for sure a God and I believe in the Bible, let's say, as two examples, and saying that's for sure the truth. It's like you're afraid to not know. And so you need an answer. And you've chosen your side and you're clinging to it. Versus like, something we talk about a lot on here in life is like, how can we dance with the unknown? How can we have a healthier relationship with the unknown? And I feel like that applies with this too. Like, how can you open to the magic and mystery of it in a loving, grounded way instead of needing it to be something you can point to and measure and weigh so that you don't have to feel afraid? It's like, either way, I think you still feel afraid. And I think there's so much more magic to discover when you can accept, like, okay, the experience of life is scary, but what if it's all love? And what if I have so much more agency within it than the idea of punishment and retribution or pointlessness, which I feel like is like the other side of it. Like, there's no point to this and it's all just random, you know?
It's kind of like if you bring it to another area of life, because sometimes I think the spirit world is also a perfect scapegoat because it's so immaterial. So it's easier. But think of this spectrum as somebody who's having love life troubles. Is it right to be all the way on the end of like letting yourself get beat up and abused and hurt over and over again because you're so scared that you'll never meet someone else and it will never get better and you're letting fear and superstition drive you? Or all the way on the other end of the spectrum of I'm just done with love. I'm done. Like true love doesn't really exist. I don't want to look for it and I've decided to let it go. It's like both ends of those extremes aren't the answer. There's a middle ground of like opening to yourself, being in the present moment, all of those things. And so that's like how the spectrum is with spirit too, where it's either like I'm a piece of shit and I'm powerless and everything is higher than me on the food chain spiritually, all the way to there is no God, there is nothing else, and it lights out when we die. And by the way, I'm not here to convince anyone of anything or try to change your mind. I'm presenting these ideas, and if they resonate with you, great. But also, people are having their own experiences for their own soul reasons that I can never understand. I do not claim to know everything, nor do I think we can while we're in a physical body. And so, the spirit wound, what it really dials down to energetically and how we heal it, is it boils down to self trust and a lack of self trust because we are not trusting. If intuition is the sum of all the times we've trusted ourselves, mediumship ability is the sums of all the times we've trusted spirit. It goes hand in hand. And if we don't listen to ourselves, feel regulated enough to have our own back spiritually, to hold space for ourselves and our experience, to regulate our inner child, all of these things, we're going to outsource that to a quote unquote higher power. And that is the spirit wound. And so I think that when you look at what I call spiritual triggers, for some people, these are scary dolls. For some people, they're haunted houses. For some people, they're the sense of feeling watched. For some people, it's the dark. For some people, it's, a negative tarot card. For some people, it's a quote unquote Instagram healer saying you have a curse on you. It's like wherever you're giving that power away, whatever you're giving that power away to, I think a big part of this work is regulating and holding yourself through the experience of fear as a messenger emotion that lies all the time, but is showing us where we're giving our power away. And again, look at where fear lies in other areas of life where it's like, was it right about that person or that job or that living situation? Probably not. But spirit is so ineffable and intangible that we are like, yes, like it is a demon watching me, or there is this like evil force in my basement, or whatever it is. And we have a harder time finding proof that it's lying to us. But one of the most important parts about healing the spirit wound is what I call strengthening our fear muscle. And the fear muscle is our ability to feel the fear and move through it and do it anyway and move forward more powerfully. And 99.9% of mediumship development is strengthening the fear muscle. Fear of spirit, fear of getting it wrong, fear of judgment. It's like fear, 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 fear. And here's the ringer is that spirit is so intelligent and so beautiful. And nothing about how they show up to us, what they share with us, nothing about that is arbitrary. And if they are triggering you by showing up in ways that scare you, you best believe that that is holding a mirror up to other areas in life that you are giving your power away to fear in a way that doesn't deserve it. And so our spirit guides are often showing up in this like safe, loving, almost parent way in a controlled environment where it's like, ooh, my spiritual trigger right now is this sense of feeling watched and like darkness. But if you actually distill the conditioning, the scary movies, the stories, the sensationalism around those physical phenomenon down. And you're like, I'm in my bed, in my house, I'm powerful, nothing else is happening. I create what needs to happen right now, whether that's turning on the lights, playing some music, listening to what this fear is bringing up, asking your inner child what this fear is bringing up for them. Like, there are so many options we have in that moment that our guides are like bringing to our attention. And so often we'll choose to just like cower in bed with our cover over our head, and I was that person. That's why I'm so passionate about this, is that for so many of us, where the spirit wound originates is heightened sensitivity to the spirit world with lack of education. And we're in this very spiritually wounded world and collective consciousness and psyche. And then you like see a spirit person as you're falling asleep, or you sense presences, and you go to evil, prey mode, fight or flight, scary. That falls into the inner child rung of this wound, where our inner child has such strong associations with fear and spirit that we close up and we never open again. And it's just such powerful detangling to get back to remembering who we really are. And that's the thing about spirit, too. As spirit comes through, as our guides come through, are their messages ever anything except empowerment? They're not asking for worship. They're not asking for blind obedience. They're not asking for anything other than us remembering our power and who we are. And they nudge us and help us along the way to do that. There's so many cases of imagination being projected as intuition or intuitive information where there's just no evidence for it.
It's so true. In a way, I almost feel like we're like a version of spirit in human form
We are.
of that energy, but on the ride of being a human. And so, in that way, we can feel so loved and supported that that energy is on our side. That energy is us here supporting and loving us. And I mean, I have always been a very fearful person, and I don't watch scary movies because I don't need to put any more imaginary thoughts in my mind of scary things. But it has been such a cool shift knowing you over these years and talking about this. Like, I used to be really afraid of spirits and ghosts, and I would always be like, if you're real, I don't want to know, don't show up, leave me out of it. And now I don't know. I just don't feel afraid because of everything you've shared. I'm like, I just don't think that that is real. Like, there aren't spooky ghosts trying to scare you, and there's no evidence of them doing that except for in our imagination in the movies. And so, really anchoring into that truth of that you are so loved and supported, that if you are feeling the energy of a spirit, why do we jump to that it's going to be bad? Why don't we jump to that it's a loving energy? I mean, maybe the times I felt like, oh, there might be a presence in the room, it was one of my loved ones trying to say, what's up? And instead, I was like, demon, be gone. They were probably like, okay, girl, we'll leave you be. But, what a cool opportunity that maybe you're turning away from for no reason.
It's so true. Like, even in the past, when my dogs would like stare at nothing and like watch it move around the house, I'd be like, what the hell are they seeing? This is not okay. And now, like, when Ronaldo does it, I'm like, I wonder who's here. Is it Mosin? Is it someone that wants to chat in my next client session? Like, what's happening,
So beautiful.
And like healing your spirit wounds, like my journey of this, I was laughing about it the other day because I went from this just like young girl with no information who was having these dreams of when family members would pass, and everything was like scary to me. And I was sensing spirit, and it was also scary, to now me as like an evidential medium. And I also used to be so afraid of the dark. I would sleep with the light on and play Jim Dale's narration of Harry Potter every single night. Like, I literally could not function. I was like sleep deprived. Like, everything was wrong when I was in the throes of my spirit wound. And now the other day, Ari was sick and I was sleeping in the guest room to be away from him. I was in the room by myself reading a book about mediumship, then turned the light off, was in pitch darkness. And in that room is where we keep my father in law's ashes. So I was like, wow, past me. I was like, look how far I've come. And I have totally rewired myself to, instead of giving my power away, I associate spirit with love and darkness with love, like a force of being held by love. And it has just changed every single thing about my life. So this is just so powerful. And our guides are really messengers showing us how to relate to fear in a different way. Relating to fear in a different way, like remembering our power, that's such a big portion of what we're doing here. And on your point, Claire, about no evil spirits, something that I was just told yesterday was like, there are no evil spirits, but we project human consciousness again onto everything that we don't understand. So we're like, if there are bad people, there are bad spirits. But one, have you ever met an evil baby? Ever? When they're just like before they've been traumatized or before the brain has developed, like, have you ever met an evil baby? Two, what spirit said was there are no bad spirits, only people that forget they are spirit. And then when they leave the physical body, they leave the pain and restriction of the wounded body, but they also leave the pain and restriction of the wounded mind. And they remember their true nature of being spirit. And what if we remembered right now? It didn't take dying physically to do that. What if we remembered that we're spirit now? And that is the crux of this work, is like, I think another thing within this work that's really common is, and I did this too, like, that's why I feel qualified to speak about this because I've been on this journey. When we feel afraid of a spiritual trigger, whatever that is, we ask angels for help. We ask Archangel Michael. We ask our loved ones in spirit. We ask God. We ask the universe. We're like, help me, protect me, hold the corners, whatever it is. What does that say to our psyche on a subconscious level? That we are not sourcing that protection for ourselves, that we are outsourcing even that to other beings. It's like we've, on a subconscious level, are in this like spiritual warfare, and we forget that we have all of the tools that we need to like be protected and to relate to things powerfully. And so I think that's a really common mistake on this path too, is like, instead of holding yourself through the trigger, processing the pain or fear, and proving to yourself through nervous system regulation, inner child work, and spiritual remembering that you are powerful, you are spirit, and your higher self and your soul has so much power that we're like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. Angels help me, angels help me, angels help me. And I think that that is such a shift too. It kind of goes back to what Claire and I were talking about in 301 of like, meeting our needs for ourselves that our family couldn't meet. And this is like meeting our spiritual needs for ourselves. And that changes everything too.
Yes, you literally took the thought out of my brain. I feel like that's been this really cool shift for me lately. Like in the mornings, I used to sit and I'd be like, angels, like, please be with me today and help me through this day. And not that that's wrong, to connect with them. But in the last year, instead, I'll connect with my little self. And I'll connect with her and then I'll give her, I'll ask her if she has anything to share with me. And then I'll just give her that love and security and support of like, you're so loved. I choose you. You're amazing. Like, I've got you. You don't have to be afraid because I've got you. That has been so empowering to like recognize and feel that I am the protector, of little me or of me, that I don't have to be afraid because I have me. And like that has been such a cool emotional shift, but also kind of like a spiritual shift because I never thought of it the way you just said it. It kind of was this like natural shift as I've been doing that work. But yeah, it's like I haven't been outsourcing or just being like, please, please, please help me make this be good, angels. It's like, no, I'm going to do it. I've got this. That is massive.
That's healing the spirit wound. It's no longer spiritually outsourcing our power. It's taking responsibility for every part of our life. And we've all been doing that on like our mental and physical healing journey, our emotional healing journey. But I'm asking us to also do it on our spiritual healing journey, because I think that is like one of the last really numinous parts of the puzzle that I think we're all, just like you said, Claire, like naturally on our healing journey, relating to it in a different way. And I'm trying to put language to it in a way that I really needed it like a decade ago.
Yes. You know, and it reminds me of something else too that I've been recognizing. Like, I am working through a "I'm not enough" wound, as I'm sure many people can relate to, and I've noticed that it extends to what I would call the universe. It's like, I just want these things, and then I'll feel okay, and in a way, it's almost like a denial of the moment. It's almost like I'm saying to the universe, "This isn't enough. You're not enough." And I think in a similar way, this spirit wound is like when we're saying like, "Oh no, spirit is bad, spirit is evil," or there are these evil spirits. It's like almost like a rejection of spirit. It's like a pushing away. And like if I'm spirit, I mean, I know spirit is not a person, but if I'm spirit, that's like a disconnect. I'm not being fully embraced. I'm not being fully accepted and loved. And I think that I'm really trying to shift that with each moment of like, this moment is enough. I'm enough and this moment is enough. And I think that extends to this spirit wound of like, I fully love and accept spirit. I don't need to fear spirit.
Yes, that's so powerful and really speaks to the duality of this wound because we are human and spirit, and the spirit wound affects both. And because of that, there's always an inverse frequency to what we're grappling with on the spiritual plane, too. And so, exactly like you just said with the universe and with the enoughness, another example of that is like when you're so afraid of the dark and you're so afraid of negative spirits and negative entities, it's like, flipping that, where are you afraid of your own darkness? Where are you not looking at your own shadows? Where are you not integrating that? And that's what I mean by nothing spirit does is arbitrary. So if they're contacting you, if they're teaching you something, if they're getting your attention, it's for a reason. And it's always to help us remember and progress. And I think one of the big reasons, or one of the big mirrors in this wounded consciousness is around control. And what's very interesting is like we cannot control how spirit shows up. We just cannot. And I think why so many people fear airplanes and it's like times that you're out of control completely. And in some ways, that is spirit communication. We don't know when they're going to come, what they're going to say, what's going to happen. And when you've connected with spirit long enough, you understand it's all love. But when you don't, it's like the nervous system regulation to be able to connect with spirit. It's all interconnected. So that duality to the spirit wound is why it can be sometimes difficult to speak about it because it's so nuanced and so layered and so pervasive because we are spirit and we are human and we are part of this collective and we have ancestors that have different beliefs about all of this and it's all this like cocktail that really it's our choice now to say are we going to continue to drink this cocktail that we've been served by life or are we going to actually question the ingredients, see which ones we're allergic to, make a recipe that actually suits us? And I think that it's so empowering and exciting. And it doesn't mean we have to walk away from our guides or God or the universe. It means we're connecting with them from a place of spiritual authority. And that's when you open a portal for miracles. That is how you open a portal for miracles because how you walk through life when you've healed your spirit wound is so much different than how you hide through life and outsource through life and cower through life when you haven't. And that version of self that's like, because, we talked about this on Jessica's episode about the TBM book, about how when we have subconscious fears, they block our manifestation. And if you subconsciously or consciously fear spirit, how will you connect with your guides? How can you manifest that intuitive opening? It's like an intuitive connection is everything because if you're not listening to your intuition to guide you, what are you listening to? So it runs so deep and there's so much I want to talk about with it, but this is really the crux of it is detangling where we are outsourcing our spiritual power, how that affects our mind, our inner child, our emotions, and how we can say, does that really resonate with me? And where is the evidence? Like every time I felt watched or had a spiritual trigger and was afraid of the dark, The sun came up the next day. There I was. Everything's fine. The evidence for love is overwhelming. Like when I'm giving a mediumship reading, the people aren't like, "Hey, tell them I say F you." Like, tell them I'm gonna mess with them soon. They're always like, "I love you, and this is what I wanna talk about, and this is what I want you to know about this, this, this." Like, it's always love, and it's same with, like, all of my favorite evidential mediums, it's all love. Like, I don't see evidence for fear. I see uninformed misinterpretation creating narratives based in imagination. And something one of my mediumship mentors, Dana Willie, says is mediumship without evidence is just story time. And I think that that is a big part of this spirit wound that I'm talking about of like imagination versus actual spiritual phenomenon and evidence. It's just so much story. And I think people feed on that story and build on that story. But I think one of the most common ones is when people see like negative attachments on people. And here's what I think is really interesting about the spirit wound, too, is that there are a lot of people with heightened mediumship sensitivity. Like, first of all, every single person can connect, but some people have that dial turned up. And those to me are the people who are the most superstitious or religious or afraid because they are having a real experience of the energy, but then misinterpreting it. And so, like, a lot of people will be like, I sense a negative attachment on you. And that scares the F out of people. And when you're in your spirit wound, you can fall prey to people that are also in their spirit wound and misinformed. And there's a lot out there that can prey on that fear. It's like, by being in the spirit wound that we think is going to protect us, we're actually putting ourselves in more danger because spirit is the protection. Our intuition is the protection. Remembering our higher self is the protection. And so I think, we all have auras, we all are energetic beings. And I think when we see shadows in the aura, trauma in the aura, pain in the aura, we misinterpret that as an attachment. And so I'm extremely clairsentient. That is like my main Claire, as you guys know. And we're going to be doing a clairsentient solo, which I'm so excited for. And so when I feel people's pain, it hits me like a ton of brick. It feels heavy. It feels like it could be an evil entity. It feels grief ridden and sad. It feels responsible for XYZ creations in different areas of their life, but that's not something outside of them. That is the pain or the wound or the trauma. But then if you come from a background of story, you can label that as a demon or a negative attachment or an entity. And so that's why I think like we're so close. Like we are picking up on things, we're sensing them, but I think we're ready for like a radical loving revolution and an empowerment. And I think it's just the next evolution of healing our witch wounds as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, as that example, like choosing to think that that's some like attachment entity takes the power and agency away from us of really facing and dealing with whatever that heaviness and darkness is that we're carrying around. And like we talked about at the top of the episode, like that's alive in all of us because of the things we've experienced. And when we don't allow ourselves to look at it and process it and move through it, it hangs around us like a cloud. And I think if we outsource and say, oh, I have an entity on me or a attachment on me, it takes away the power and the agency of really shifting and moving through that. And I think like that is what's so cool about our journey here on earth is that we're here to face those things and move through them and shift that energy. And so I think it's so important and just as a whole, like I know for you and I, like healing our witch wound has been such an empowering journey. And watching you do it and then finding my way through it, like I am so transformed by doing that. And so it makes total sense that like this will affect me in the same way. And like I see it in you, it's like there's no doubt that healing these things and connecting to them in a different way is empowering and emboldening. Like there's no doubt.
Yeah. It's so true. If I had a graph of like my joy, my abundance, my life contentment, it'd be like the sky high. after healing the witch wound and healing the spirit wound. And it goes so deep and it's so interwoven. And that's why it's complicated to talk about because it's so nuanced and it overlaps with nervous system regulation, witch wound healing, societal programming, everything. But the root of it is really remembering who we are. And that's what was so powerful to me when spirit was like, there are no bad spirits, just spirits who forgot who they really are. And if we can remember that, that's what our guides are trying to get us to do. Our guides are like so powerful too because they're not telling us this is what's going to happen 5 years from now. This is the exact way forward. They give us cryptic little bits and pieces and hints to empower us. Like the way that they teach us shows the confidence they have in our intelligence too. We are intelligent. We are powerful. We are creators. We are responsible for ourself, mind, body, soul. And the soul element is a really important part of this. And it all interconnects too, because 99% of mediumship development is also personal development. It's learning to feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, how scary is it that you can't control how spirit shows up and you have someone grieving, waiting to hear from that person? It's like a complicated situation and you're just opening, and all you can do is surrender and receive in that moment. The amount of like personal work that you have to do to be able to hold space and not let your ego and your mind and your protectors come up to like protect you in that moment, but just feel safe enough to not be judged, to not be wrong, to not close up, like whatever that fear is huge. And so this is all really an interesting arena for self development because there's nothing outside of ourself and energy. Like, there is nothing else. There's no one else. There's nothing else. There's nowhere else. It's just us and spirit and whatever crunchy, shadowy things are coming up. And everything that does come up, I guarantee you, there are threads of connection to that same thing coming up in other ways in your life that you're giving your power away in very real, tangible situations.
Yeah. We've been saying a lot, it's like a beautiful opportunity when that stuff comes up to like open more deeply and see what needs healing, see what needs shifting. And like you said in your sessions, how you have to be so open to receiving. I mean, I think when we can be in that energy, I mean, I know you and I have experienced that through improv. It's like when we're in that energy, the improv is fire. And when you're strangling the life out of it because you want to be good, it doesn't work. And that's such a life lesson. It's so contradictory because it feels like we need to like effort and control. But I think in all areas, the more we can trust and open to what is and move with what is coming up, the more magic unfolds because we really miss the magic when we, try and hold on so tight, when we try and control.
Yeah, all mediumship and intuitive information happens in the present moment. And the mind wants us out of the present moment because it wants us safe. It wants to think about what could happen or what did happen in the past. And that's why, again, mediumship development and personal development is interconnected because it's about feeling safe to co create in the present moment, feeling safe. And that's the part that reminds us that we're a creator as well. It's like feeling safe to just actually intentionally create our life, which all creation happens in the present moment. Creation doesn't happen in the past or the future either. And all of this is just stripping away the fearful layers of conditioning that try to take us out of the present moment, try to make us feel unsafe and control. And something that I want to invite you guys to think about. It's kind of funny. I was thinking about like the inner villain voice that we talk about so much on the pod. And I was like, what if we also had a spiritual superhero part of our psyche instead of just the inner villain voice? And what if that is just our higher self? And the next time we feel a spiritual trigger, the next time we feel like we're in a haunted house, which by the way, just want to say how much imagination factors into this. If you go to like a dusty old Victorian house with a creepy doll collection, you're going to associate that with your imagination with ghosts and fear and haunted houses. And if you go to a big open bright garden gazebo, you're going to associate that with like peace and spirit and love and God, which just shows like, murder and difficult things and horrible things and war has happened on like sunny garden pathways. And really happy weddings and parties and joyous occasions have happened in houses that look haunted. It's like our imagination so loves to intrude and pretend it's intuition too. But next time you're in a situation, and by the way, in both of those examples, humans decide what to build there. We are the creators. If there's a haunted house, we could burn that shit down and plant an apple orchard. Like, instead, we're just like paying money to go be scared and be like, oh my God, like, we are the creators of this field, of this plane. So next time you're in that moment where like a spiritual trigger is coming up and your imagination or a story is coming up and you're like, oh my God, I feel superstition. I feel triggered. I feel my spirit wound. I feel like I want to ask my angels for help. I invite you to turn inward, to breathe through the discomfort of the emotion, to sit with the activation, to take a moment to just honor the fear. And I know fear is like so uncomfortable. Like, I have woken up from nightmares in a cold sweat, ready to bolt out of bed. And that feeling of fear is so visceral. And it's designed to be, because it's designed to protect us and keep us safe. And to our like subconscious and our psyche or whatever, like that fear is very real. But then just notice, like, am I immediately safe? And that's the first question. Am I immediately safe in my physical surroundings? Take all of the like emotional, unseen, spiritual stuff out. Just in my physical environment, where am I and am I safe? What does my inner child want me to know about this fear? And if you can't get to that right away, just sit with the fear, feel the fear. Sometimes I like to just picture a beautiful blue waterfall of light, just like cleansing me and resetting me energetically. Sometimes if I wake up from a nightmare, I do that. And then just sit with that fear and don't ask for anything outside of you for help. Unless you wanna just, I mean, this isn't outside of you, but you can ask your higher self. I think if we can turn to our higher self and rely on our higher self and trust our higher self, like, for the sake of this exercise, not even asking our guides, just relying on ourself and sourcing that power and that deep self-trust that we have our own back. If we really believe that on a deep subconscious level, that's the world we'll create for ourselves, and spirit won't have to keep getting you the message in these different ways. Like, once you get the message, the messenger can stop. And so sit with that, process it. Notice like where your inner child maybe felt out of control, invalidated, or judged, or shamed, or there's always something like deeper underneath that fear. Sit with that and then ask yourself and decide. And by the way, our therapist, Rachel Kelly, has this like 7 steps to working through triggers method. And I'm going to share that in the workshop as well. So I consulted her and interviewed her about her expertise as a somatic and nervous system healer. And some of what I'm talking about right now is part of her method. So that's going to be really shared in depth in the workshop so that you'll have tangible steps for like a whole method of what to do in that moment. But then you can realize, like, I'm a creator and I can change this energy and I can give myself what I need to feel safe. It's like I always say, people that don't believe in ghosts never see them, because our mind is powerful creators. Another example of that is when you're getting a lice check at school. And do you remember how itchy your head started to get as soon as the nurse was going to check you for lice? Like, our brain is tricky like that. It jumps to creation because we are a creator, and what we deeply believe we create. And so if we're like, oh my God, I might have lice, and then your head starts to itch, but then did you really have lice? And it's like the same kind of pattern that's happening with the spirit world, where it's like your imagination gets activated, your fear gets activated. You start to like hear footsteps and notice flickers. Like, that is your brain playing tricks on you. So coming back to, and if you are hearing footsteps and flickers, if you were a person in spirit, how would you get your attention? I would love people to just think about that. Like, they're just trying their best to be creative.
Yeah.
How do footsteps or flickers hurt us? How are they more powerful than us in a body that can actually create physical change as just a part of our nature? That is who we are. So, yeah, just after that sort of initial spiritual trigger has passed, you've sat with it, you maybe journal about it, you can choose to connect with it in a new way. Then I want you to just sit with your higher self, the part of you that is powerful, that remembers that they're spirit, that knows that they're a creator, that always has higher wisdom for you, that speaks in a whisper that the inner villain voice and the ego and your protectors try to speak over. connect with that part of you and ask them, what do you want me to know about this fear? How are the lessons that I'm learning now preparing me to step into deeper resonance with you and this expression of me? And I think that that deep connection with remembering the part of us that is spirit and our higher self, it doesn't mean like we can't have our guides and love our guides. I think they serve a really powerful purpose. Just like we need friends and community in the physical world, it's really great having our spiritual guides and friends and community and loved ones. But that can't be healthy if we do not have a healthy relationship with ourselves. Our relationship with our guides, if we're always going to them for everything and we're so scared and superstitious and can't make a decision on our own, that is when our guides take a step back. That is when they're like, you need to figure this out because we have more love and faith for you than you have love and faith for you. And I think that, we can like recreate these toxic, unhealed patterns in the spiritual world with our guides and with a higher power and source as we are with tangible physical relationships here. Because again, everything about this work is a mirror. That's why it matters. It's like, it wouldn't matter if it wasn't a mirror because it's like optional to connect with spirit and whatever. You'll join the spirit world one day, but everything about it is a mirror to our human experience. And that is what we're here to interact with in a more powerful way.
Yeah, yeah, that's so powerful and really resonates. I mean, if spirit is trying to help us grow and expand and remember our power and remember our authenticity, then it's going to show up in ways that challenge the beliefs that don't align with that. And if one of those is that, you're afraid and you don't have agency, spirit's going to flicker the lights so that you can face that, So I think it's, again, like we've been saying, that's such a powerful way to handle it. And next time I get really scared, I'm going to do that because it is so real when you feel that fear and it can be so overpowering. But it doesn't ever, like, never has any of the times that I've been in a cold sweat in my room, convinced that something bad was happening, has that ever happened?
It's so true. Fear is the best liar in the world. And something else that's really interesting to me is like people will bring up like the fear paralysis demon and things like that. Be like, that's a demon. And I've actually had experience with that like entity as well. I don't think that's a demon. When has it ever gotten anyone? When has it ever done anything? I think that these figures are spirit guides teaching us to strengthen our fear muscle. And I think that's what's even so interesting about dreams. And I was thinking about this too. It's like, this isn't to say that like bad things never happen. And I'm not spiritually bypassing or pretending that evil doesn't exist, but I believe it exists in the human world, not the spirit world. And because I think that the density of being in a brain and a body and an ego creates that like malfunction of thought. And I think we're at a higher vibration in spirit consciousness that is on the same resonant frequency as love. But anyway, in the dream world, when like a cheetah is chasing you and you're running for your life and you're so afraid, as soon as it catches you, you wake up. When you're falling from a building and you're so afraid because you're about to hit the ground, you wake up before you hit impact. When a murderer is chasing you through the woods in a dream and a ghost is also there, and then like you're running and you're trying to scream and nothing's coming out, you wake up before anything happens. There's also not one time in a nightmare, and I dream very lucidly and remember my dreams. There is not one time I can remember of actually suffering in a dream or a nightmare. It's always innuendo, and fear works through innuendo. The subtext is what if, but not once has it actually made you suffer. There is a time I felt period cramps in a dream, but I won't count that as like mortal peril or something like that. So I think that that is also a really interesting clue because I think there's a lot of connection between the spirit world and the dream world because our consciousness is just outside of the body when we're in the dream world, and there's just some overlap there in my opinion. But I just think it's really interesting that like fear works through innuendo, not fact. And what I'm asking us to do is to also be factual, regulated, and empowered within this area of life too, not just the other facets of our healing journey.
Yeah, lately I've been saying to myself, fear is not a fact, and fear is not the future. It's just a fear. And if we look at it as wonderful information, instead of this thing to be shunned and pushed away, if we recognize it as something we need to look at, then it's this great opportunity to know ourselves deeper and to step into this experience in a more empowered way. Like you said, our fears are signifiers of a shadow of something that needs to be healed. And so, especially if you're listening to this and feeling a lot of that fear around like spirit and demons and all that stuff is really alive in you, I think it's like a really cool opportunity to face it. And even thinking about dreams, like something I was talking about with a friend, she said she has these reoccurring dreams where she's chased by lions and she's had them since she was younger. And so we suggested, like, next time turn around and just face the lion. And my roommate Mandy does that a lot when she's in a scary dream where she just stops and faces the thing and is like, what? And she's like, usually it ends it. It disappears. And so I think we make these big monsters in our mind. And I even feel that about my shadows. It's like these shadows can feel like such big monsters. And usually when I shine my awareness light on it, they dissipate pretty quick, actually, because they just needed to be looked at for me to recognize that, like, oh, it isn't actually a monster. And I've got this.
Yes, absolutely. It's like we're all have a part to play, and even spirit like dresses up in a different role if it's going to teach us a lesson, but it's in like such a safe, controlled way. And going back to that like sleep paralysis demon, quote unquote, when we had Dr. Michael Lennox on the pod, I think he's episode 111, he was saying how people did exactly what Mandy does, where they like confront the sleep paralysis demon. And there was a story, I can't remember if we talk about it on the podcast or if it's in his book, Lucid Dreamer, I think is his book. We'll put it in the show notes. He has a story of someone who like had this really scary like sleep paralysis experience. It was recurring and it was so like viscerally terrifying, which by the way, like the amygdala does not know the difference between an actual threat and like a memory or a story. The brain processes the fear of story and imagination just as real and viscerally as it does an actual threat. So that's also a part of, there's like a very biological level of this work. And the person, like it was a man, this dreamer started talking to the dream paralysis demon and was kind of like, okay, like, what do you want me to know? I'm here. Like, if you're going to end it all, end it all. And it like turned into this beautiful woman that he like had like turned into like an intimate dream with like this beautiful woman.
Oh, I remember this.
Yes. And so I think that it's also just like so interesting. It's like the more we like resist it, it's like, in what way are we co-creating with the sleep paralysis demon? Like, in what way are we like waiting for it and afraid and think that we have no spiritual power? And like, how is it asking to be related to differently, but in a controlled environment that gets us the lesson?
Yeah, for sure. It's like by co-creating with it, we make it bigger, we make it scarier. We decide it can get us, but like it can't get us.
Yeah. And fear works because it's perfectly tailored to what triggers us. Like it is very scary to us. It wouldn't like the fear paralysis entity, like when I would see it, it was like the scariest demonic looking figure in like this black hat and just staring at me and I couldn't move. Like it had to be that scary. Or else, what is the point? It can't be like Disney Junior version of like fear. It's really helping us relate to fear in a different way. And for that reason, it has to be scary. But I think that that's how we all have these like collective experiences. And it's like, well, if that's true, it means that there's a demon here or a haunted house here. And it like trickles into wounded consciousness. And I'm really excited for this workshop because I'm going to go into common myths. I'm going to dispel common myths about the spirit world, ghosts, possessions, haunted houses, portals, like all of these things that people say, which I understand why they do. And as somebody born into a collective world with a deep spirit wound, it's in all of our psyche. And so a lot of us tapping into very real things are just maybe misinterpreting it. And so I'm going to go into that. We're going to go into working through fear and tangible, practical steps. And then we're also going to go into mediumship development and connecting with the spirit world and connecting with your loved ones and developing as a medium and strengthening your intuition. And when we heal the spirit world, it makes it so much richer and stronger of a relationship. And it is a big part of intuitive development too. So it's almost like I couldn't do a mediumship workshop without the deep rewiring and reconditioning as well. And that's something I'm so passionate about. Like, even in Becoming the Oracle, my mentorship program, I talk about like common intuitive pitfalls and facing the fear and strengthening the fear muscle so much because it's an inextricable part of the process of doing this spiritual work, especially in this world.
Yeah, and I think just a huge part of being a human being and living life. It's like when we face our fears and we take these risks and trust ourselves, we expand, we trust that we can do even more things. Like it's such a powerful practice to feel the fear and do it anyway. It opens your life up to so many possibilities when you make that choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I've so loved this. And if this topic resonates with you, if you want to get deeper into healing the spirit wound, if you want to develop your mediumship, I'm so excited for this workshop. I'm going to be hosting it March 3rd, 4th, and 11th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. You can sign up at angelsandamethyst.com. If you can't make it live, the replay will be available and it won't affect. So we'll be doing some guided meditations, we'll be doing some exercises, but you can do it on your own. You don't need anyone else. So the only thing that you'd miss by not coming live is the opportunity to ask a question. And if any questions come up about the subject material, you can email it to me. So it's okay if you can't make it live. And of course, I think March 3rd is like an eclipse. These were just the dates that I could do it, but Magic Hour was on an eclipse and now this is on an eclipse. I'm like, okay, yeah, March 3rd is an eclipse. So that's going to be fun. It's like, what could be more spiritually powerful, and what a powerful way to start off 2026, and just has a deep ripple effect. Like, I can't think of anything more valuable than like remembering our power and trusting ourselves. And when I was deep in my spirit wound, I literally like wouldn't sleep, was in the wrong relationship, was so afraid of trusting anything outside of the material realm. And it's just, it doesn't have to be that way. So I hope that you'll join us, and you can sign up at angelsandamethyst.com. Code 333 will give you $33 off. And I really cannot wait for it.
So exciting. I've loved talking about this. It's such a powerful and interesting topic that I think is so important in our world today.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the ripple effects are staggering. I was overwhelmed by how deep this runs. And I really was prepared for just the fear of spirit. And it ended up being so much deeper than that, of course.
Yeah, it's totally transformed your life.
Yeah, it really, really has. And it's like one of the biggest gifts ever. And yeah, just so grateful. So let's transition to sitting with spirit. Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit, my loves, the part of the podcast where I sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in the spirit world, and give the messages for the collective. As always, take what resonates with you, leave the rest. Before we get into this week's Sitting with Spirit, I just wanted to give you guys a reminder about the next giveaway. Since I announced the Healing the Spirit Wound workshop in this episode, I just wanted to remind you that for the next giveaway, which will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, I will be giving away one angel reading / mediumship reading, and two people will receive any 3-part workshop of their choice that can include the upcoming Healing the Spirit Wound workshop. So if you haven't entered the giveaway, now is a really good time to do it. You can do it by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, subscribing to the YouTube channel, or sharing us and tagging us on your stories, and sending screenshots of those things to contact@magichourpod.com. We will enter you into the running. And as soon as we hit 288 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, we will announce the winner on the earliest episode that we can do it, because we already surpassed that by far on Spotify. So now we're just waiting for Apple to catch up. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you know the homework assignment, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so going into the messages for the week, It has been so energetically heavy, my loves. And there has been so much grief and so much righteous anger and so much frustration. And I know that 2025 was energetically very similar. And 2026 is starting off with like so much intensity. And something that I feel called to share that is not new. It is something that I have talked about, I think, on season one, is the idea of group manifestation. And what we collectively believe will be the world that we create. And I think everything in our world, not everything, but religious indoctrination, media, what big systems of government would have us believe, propaganda, all of these things are programmed to wire our conscious or subconscious beliefs to a place where we believe that we are powerless. And that is not true. But if enough of us believe we are powerless, then it will become true because it's a group manifestation. Just like how if we believe we're powerless on the individual level, that's true. We give our power away to everything else and to that story. And so I just want to say, I think it's so powerful and so full of hope. First of all, seeing all of these brave people around the world standing up to evil and always pick the side of the people. And secondly, that to me shows expanded consciousness in the realm of our power. Like what the people of Minnesota are doing right now is so much deeper than just being heroes standing up for their neighbors. They are expanding our consciousness into what's possible. They're reminding us that we're powerful. They're giving us permission to not allow the yardstick of what we accept from the government to move any further. And so it's been such an intense time, and I'm sending so much love to everybody. And I just want to say, really question the stories of your collective beliefs about what's possible just as much as our individual beliefs, because it's the same energetic pattern. And our beliefs are powerful because we are powerful creators. We are the creators on earth. And if enough of us remember our power, the way that the world will change in proportion to that will be so magical. So I think that's already happening. And I think Pluto and Aquarius is showing so many shadows right now. And so going into the angel messages for the week, it's no surprise to me that as I was tuning into the energy, I felt a lot of layers. I feel like a lot of people, and the collective is, of course, always mirroring something on the individual and vice versa. And I feel like a lot of us are processing tough emotions. A lot of us feel a little lost or at a crossroads. A lot of us feel a little bleak or grim for the future. A lot of us are feeling overwhelmed and burnt out. And the first message that came through was that if we can just meet these uncomfortable emotions and sit with them and listen to them and process them, that is the process of making room for a different emotional experience. Sort of like cleaning out of our closet. If we get rid of all the clothes that don't fit us anymore, that we don't like anymore, that don't make us feel good, then we have space in our closet for whatever new clothes do come in. And that's just a very rudimentary example, but sometimes I find it helps to compare the intangible to the tangible so that it just is a clear metaphor. And right now feels like a time where we're processing a lot of icky, uncomfortable, deep things. And it feels like it might be dysregulating. It feels like it might be heavy. And if that's coming up for you, know that the act of processing it is the act of creating space for more love and joy and presence and security and all of those other emotions that we want to feel. And so as I continued to tune in, I just again felt those blankets of heavy emotion. For a lot of us, I felt this sense of being overwhelmed or lost right now. And I saw writing as being very important in this moment, whether that's journaling, whether that's asking questions to your higher self, whether it's just free writing. Even if you write, I'm angry and I don't know what to say and I blah, blah, blah. Eventually, as you get all those thoughts out, you might start to have inspiration, aha moments, and start to get more in a channeled, inspired writing flow state. So I highly, highly recommend that for processing deeper layers of clarity and making connections that if you didn't bring the mental into the physical might not have been as clear to you. And then piggybacking off of that, I also felt the inner villain voice turned up really loud right now. And an area that I felt like the inner villain voice was picking on us was around our level of spiritual support. And for a lot of people, I feel questioning your intuitive connection, questioning if it's really real, questioning if you're really supported, maybe believing it for other people, but not yourself. Like, I just feel a lot of like cynicism and bitterness and intensity from the inner villain voice, specifically around third eye themes, like the ability to trust your intuition, maybe forgiving yourself for past times that you mistook fear or attraction for intuition. So, whatever it is that's coming up for you within that spectrum, knowing that it's not truth and getting to the deeper way that that thought thinks it's protecting you and sitting with that and unraveling that and really looking at that and asking your higher self if they really believe that that's the truth, that you're not connected or supported. I feel like this week it's really important to take care of your mental health. It's really important to just take it easy on yourself. It's really important to go at the pace that you have the capacity for. I just feel like a lot of people are going through a lot right now. Be kind to yourself, be easy to yourself, be kind to other people. It's not a time to be militant. It's not a time to like think you're failing if you don't do everything on your checklist. Just get through and breathe. What an act of radical love and cycle breaking and unconditional self love to know that you are worthy enough to not have to check everything off of a checklist to still be worthy and to still be held and loved. And, for so many of us, we come from these ancestral lineages where we think perfection is the cost of love. And sometimes the gift of these moments that we can't be quote unquote perfect, that we can't show up perfectly, one of the gifts of that is realizing I'm still worthy of love just the way I am, showing up in this moment in a way that our ancestors maybe never fully got that lesson. So sometimes spirit and our higher self and our soul works in mysterious roundabout ways. And if we can stay in love and truth and trust and presence through that, we will milk every drop of what our soul needed from that experience. And so the other layer of this is that I feel a layer of what my angels called mental paralysis. So, just like we can have physical paralysis or physical symptoms, the judgment, the stories of self, the if then thinking can cause mental paralysis where we think we have the illusion of freedom, but we're operating in these limiting beliefs and stories that keep us going in the same tiny slice of consciousness over and over again, which is mental paralysis. And so when we stop growing, when we stop really learning who we are and exploring who we are, when we close our mind to learning and following our curiosity and talking to people with other points of view, we have kept ourselves going around in circles in the same routines and stories and judgments that keep us from fully experiencing the richness of what life has to offer. And so there's also this sense of, with the inner villain voice being heavy and the energy maybe being heavy, or a lot of people going through a lot of things that make it feel foggy or confusing or disjointed right now. Where are you paralyzing yourself? Where are you maybe going to the same takeaways or lessons or answers or arriving at the same conclusions? How can you maybe think about this moment in an expanded way? How can you show up with more love? Maybe you can tune into what your angels, ancestors, and guides want you to know in this moment that you're not seeing. And that's really key word here. Like, what am I not seeing? What can I look at through the eyes of greater love? And I think that that will help shift things as well than going down the same rabbit holes of thought. And so when I pulled the card for the week, I pulled the hangman. And some of the keywords with hangman energy can be stuck or slow, navigating unknowns, feeling a little lost, dealing with some delays or challenges. And I think a key word of hangman energy that really sticks out to me for this sitting with spirit is feeling out of control. The hangman is hung up by their foot upside down. seeing everything topsy-turvy, can't move from that spot, isn't really comfortable in that spot. But through being in that upside down position is getting answers and clarity that they wouldn't have if they stayed busy and went through the motions and weren't forced to hang upside down for a while. And so a message that I got about this that hit me so powerfully is that in our society that measures success, worthiness, and even spiritual alignment with how fast, quickly, and abundantly we are quote unquote progressing towards our goals and manifestations, hanged man energy feels so unsafe to our nervous system. It feels so dysregulating. Being in a place where we're forced to hang upside down, where we're not making quote unquote progress, where we feel out of control, where we are letting the clock tick by, that is super upsetting to us in this society because of the stories that we are telling ourselves about what it means. And so I think for a lot of people, we have a very sneaky script or story running in the background of our consciousness that says, when I reach my goals, when I get my manifestations, when life feels easy and fast, that means that I am spiritually connected, spiritually supported. I am in connection with my highest self. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which coversely means if things feel slow, if I don't judge that I'm progressing how my ego wants me to progress, if I feel like the timing isn't lining up with my story of how it should, then that has to mean I'm spiritually disconnected. I'm not supported. I'm failing a test from the universe. I'm XYZ thing. But is that really true? Or is that just a story that you're telling yourself? Because that story that we tell ourselves of quickness in our manifestation equals success. Taking the time for our manifestations come through equals disjointed, unhealed, not passing of a test. That story is a way that our psyche is trying to control time. And we can't control time. And sometimes we have to be in the hangman energy. And hangman energy is not a sign that you are out of alignment or that you're not successful. It shows that your soul is in a portal of integration, clarity, deeper inner work that is very valuable and that the soul needs for one reason or another. It's not us to judge it. But when we're in this world of like social media and comparison, and it's really interesting too, because I'm even around people who are successful and have everything that some people want. But if you are in this place of like nervous system dysregulation, it's never enough. It's never big enough. It's never enough. It's never contentment. I think practicing contentment is so important in this like social media age where everything is about comparison and signals that we are, plugged in some superior way to the universe. And so right now, if hangman energy is coming up for you, if you're feeling a little in between or navigating challenges or feel out of control or are hanging upside down, not saying that there might not be struggles or pain or discomfort in that experience, but I am saying look at where your ego is telling a story about it that is not true. That is human consciousness trying to create rules and regulations onto the chaos of the universe. That's judging the soul's progress. And the message that came through is we do not control time. We only control the stories we attach to time. By this age, I should have this. By that time, I should have that. Those are just stories. As long as you are listening to your soul, as long as you are tuning into your heart, as long as you are giving your heart what it needs, and in a hangman moment, that might be rest, to cry, to process, to journal, whatever it is. It might just be play or stepping away or jumping on a trampoline. I don't know. Whatever it is, if you listen to that, that is when you're connected to your highest timeline. And everybody's timeline looks different. So just tune into your own heart. And what our angel said is in between spaces are not a punishment from the universe. They are portals for recalibration and clarity. So if you find yourself going through that And it makes sense with the numerology of 9 coming into 1. We are in this in between crossroads moment. There are a lot of questions. Kind of makes sense with what I was feeling with February's energy in episode 304 as well. With like, yes, we see ourselves and our patterns clearer before, but then what does that mean about the bigger picture, about where we're going and all of these things? And so your soul is getting exactly what it needs in some way or another. And only our co creation with pass or fail mentality, trying to control time, trying to control our path, all of those things make it so torturous for us when it really doesn't have to be. So, going into the mediumship, I actually felt my spirit guide A coming through with a message for the collective, which is really interesting because that's never happened before. And A was showing me that right now we're in a moment of heightened collective witch wound healing. And right now, we're in this collective moment of needing to use our voice, feel safe to, be other, be different, be inconvenient to the systems that be, the powers that be, to stand in our spiritual authority, to remember our magic, as the message that they've shared before. Times of heightened fear summons our inner witch and invites us to step into our power in a deep way. And so A was basically showing me this flower as a metaphor. And when the flower is listening to the witch wound, it doesn't feel safe enough to open its petals and bloom because it would be vulnerable, it would be open. But from that openness and coming into bloom, it attracts the bees, it attracts the pollinators, it opens up to everything meant for it in life. And right now, I was seeing from some people in this community and also the collective being these like tight little buds that are really everything. Your guides, your angels, your ancestors are inviting you to blossom and to open and to heal the witch wound in a deeper way that allows you to share your beauty and your light and your love with the world. And the message that A gave is that consciousness is changing on earth and we are not being good future ancestors by refusing the call to blossom, to heal the witch wound, to use our voice, to activate our magic. It's like almost our civic responsibility and duty as witches is to do this work. And A was basically saying consciousness is changing so much with like AI and screens and censorship and all of these things. And just like at protests nowadays, we see it's like so many older people that go because they have a different consciousness and they're part of a different time. We are going to be those older people for future generations. And the work that we're doing on ourselves now are setting us up to be the morality keepers for the world. And all of the healing work that we're doing and getting involved is going to be the wisdom that future generations build upon and helps them remember and connect to their humanity when technology and noise is even louder than it is now. And so right now we are like stepping into our heart and sharing our heart, sharing our magic, healing our witch wound, and stepping into our wisdom. Not to be dramatic, but the future of humanity's consciousness depends on us being brave, depends on us standing up and healing our witch wound and sharing our magic. And we chose to come here at this time for a reason. It's our masterclass era. And for a lot of us, it's not the first time around having the witch wound and feeling the fear and needing to strengthen our fear muscle, which is feeling the fear and doing it anyway, which is literally 99.9% of mediumship. And so right now, how can you blossom? How can you open more? How can you share your true heart, your gifts, and your voice with the world? And through the process of doing that, we are ensuring future generations to stay connected to their heart too, because we will be those voices for them because of what we're doing now. So I hope that this was helpful. I'm sending you all so much love. I do want to say, underneath all the heaviness, I felt little flutters of magic this week too. And whenever I give Sitting with Spirit week messages that are heavier or on the heavier side, just know that doesn't mean that has to be your experience all week. If you are having a beautiful week with exciting things happening or you're getting married this week, like don't get in your head about the messages. these are the messages that most need to be shared. So this is what the Hummingbird Collective needed to hear the most this week. But there's always magic, there's always joy, there's always pockets for celebration and gratitude too. So I'm sending you all so, so much love. This has been quite an episode, a lot to chew on. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Magic Hour podcast. We are so happy you're here. I absolutely love to connect with you all on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. I love to get your thoughts on each episode, and I get so excited to get your emails to contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss a new episode in your inbox. We have so many amazing guests right around the corner as always. Please make sure to send your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll enter you into an angel reading giveaway with me, which is just my favorite thing, to get to connect with the Hummingbird community in that way. You get a bonus entry if you also send a screenshot of your YouTube subscription and also a screenshot of sharing us on your story and tagging us at Magic Hour Podcast on Instagram. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We so appreciate you sharing the podcast with other magical people, and it really helps us keep this project alive. To learn more about me, my work, to book a reading with me, to take a workshop, please visit angelsandamethyst.com. And remember, you are magic.